Hello and welcome to Records Rebuilds. Today's episode is going to be about swapping the seats in the C7 Corvette. Now, ever since I got this car, I wanted it to have those cool competition seats with the carbon fiber inserts, and I finally found some at a reasonable price. So I was thinking, just swap the old seats out, new seats in, plug and play. Not so much. Now, if you want to make this mod, the easiest way by far is to just buy the parts from General Motors and swap the parts on your seat. So you basically convert your seat into the opposite type. And so rather than buying the opposite type of seat and putting that in there. But I didn't want to do that for a few reasons. The first was that I think they make really cool seats like for in front of the TV. So I have them sitting like that. And I also, if I was going to go on a long road trip, I wanted to be able to swap those GT seats back in there. So I wanted two pairs. So I wanted to just swap one out and the other one in, and that ends up being a pretty tough process. In fact, it disabled the airbags on my car when I first did that. Now, I knew there were some compatibility problems with these seats. Now, first thing, the 2018 and 2019 seats have a different wiring harness connector, so that's totally different. You'd have to splice the harness or get a new harness if you want that to work in an earlier car. This car is a 2015, so I actually was really careful and I made sure that I got comp seats from a 2015. It was actually made a month and a half after my car here. But it turns out I wasn't careful enough because there was another big change that happened with the way the computers are programmed in this car. Sometime between December of 2014 and the end of January 2015. So there's like a 1 month window in there where the change happened. I'll talk about that later. But basically the seats were totally incompatible, so I had to come up with how to fix that problem. If you watch this video, I think it'll tell you how to fix that problem for any version of incompatibility of these seats. You can sort of modify the techniques I'm using here and you'll be able to make it fit. This is the first time I've seen it verified on YouTube of this is how you do it, and it was a pretty tough process. It took me about 6 to 9 months because I didn't have the right part numbers, sending wiring harnesses to General Motors and then back. You need to replace the wiring harness and the buckle in order for this to work. And there's a little sensor underneath the earlier cars, the 2014 through December of 2015 cars, that has to be changed over and placed in there. But we'll go over all that in just a little bit. I hope this helps. Okay, so the first order of business is going to be to remove these two bolts. This is a 15mm wrench. Okay, then we're going to take our covers off in the front. You can see, well, this one's kind of broken, but there's a hook there that goes around this little prong here, and then there's a tab that inserts right into here. There. That one's not broken. That's what they look like. And of course, another 15mm nut. Then we're going to take a little screwdriver like so and use it to separate this plastic piece out here. That's going to reveal our nut here, which is a 10mm. And then this just pulls out right like that. And we're ready for this seat to come out. Okay, so I did forget one thing here, and that is we need to get in here like this. And there's a little wiring harness for the seat down here. So we'll pull that loose right there. And then for the actual electrical connector itself, we just pull this little tab right here, this little gray tab, pull it open, and it will eject itself pretty much. Now this is a direct fit because this is a 2015 to a 2015. Okay, so now it's time to pull the seat out itself. So we're gonna pull up on this here so that we can get the seat in a more compact form. We've got the target top off already to make things a little easier on ourselves. And we'll just pull it right out of there. Okay, so I hope you guys can see this, but these wiring harnesses are just not that different. This is the original seat from my car, and the wiring harness was made on 10, I just can't see that very well, but the wiring harness was made on 10/10/2014 on this car, which has the the normal seats for the car. And then on the other hand, if you go to the competition seats, this wiring harness was made on 11/8/2014. It's impossible to see, but trust me, that was made 11/8/2014. And this is the nice competition seat. So these seats were made a month apart, and their wiring harnesses are completely incompatible for one reason. And the one difference between these two wiring harnesses that makes a seat swap completely impossible is the fact that this little sensor is right here. Now, if you notice, if you bring this seat forward enough, this sensor will interact with this metal plate here. And I think it's a sensor that's designed to turn the airbag off if the seat is too far forward. And I think they must have deleted that later on because it is not on the seat that was made 1 month later. So we need to get a wiring harness, an older wiring harness, and put it in the competition seat that we have. And the first way we do that is by pulling this out of here. Yeah, so it's got these little hooks on it here. So it goes in and then forward, and then you push this white spot in. The first time to get that white piece out of there is kind of hard, so you've got to use a little hook, reach down in there and pull that white locking piece out of there, and then you slide the thing back and pull it out, and then you just pull the electrical connector off. And this sensor costs a lot of money, like over $100, so we're going to send that sensor to our competition seat. Luckily, the competition seat does have this bracket to put the sensor in there, so we'll do that. Just for a quick reference, to get this electrical connector off, you'll slide it down like that, and then you'll push down on this, and that will let you slide the thing off real easy. So we'll come out to our competition seat. We will slide that in right there, just like that. And you would think it would be just that easy, but it is not just that easy, because this wiring harness here does not have any connector that goes to this sensor. So we had to buy a wiring harness. And you could just source the wiring harness from your old seat, but I want to be able to swap these seats in and out of here as I see fit, as I want to. So I need a harness that has this connector here that will go to that sensor right there. Hello, future me here with an important point that I forgot to make. All of these changes we're talking about between the seats made before November of 2014 and after November of 2014, all of those only pertain to the passenger seat. The driver's seat is totally compatible. You don't have to make any changes to that. Everything we're talking about is with the passenger seat only. Okay, so if you're out there trying to complete this project and you've got an incompatible seat, the hardest part of this whole deal is part numbers. So let's go over some part numbers. So remember, for me, I had an early car, a car built before November of 2014, And so I had a seat, a competition seat that was built after that. So I needed to convert my competition seat to some earlier parts. So the first thing you're going to need is it's going to have this sensor. This is a seat position sensor. And this is for cars at the beginning of production all the way through November of 2014. And your car will not run without it. Well, sorry, it'll run without it, but the airbags won't function. That is part number 947064446, and I hope you do not need it because it costs like $170. The next thing you'll need is a different buckle. Okay, so the buckle that I needed was the early buckle. Oops, sorry. The early buckle is part number 19301317, and again, that's for a car that was built at the beginning of production all the way through November of 2014. Now, I wrote down the part number for the later part. This is 2317481, and that should be for cars built from November of 14 through 2017. The other thing is the wiring harness. You need a new seat wiring harness because it's got to have the connector that hooks up to this little sensor here. And these wiring harnesses are tricky. It's hard to buy them off eBay because they have just these numbers on here, and that's not a part number. In fact, I've seen two identical wiring harnesses with different numbers here, but they're actually the same part number. So that's really hard. It doesn't say anywhere on it what part number it is. So I had to just end up ordering them from the dealership to get the part that I wanted. So there again, I have an early car. So I needed part number 22892500. And that's for a car from the beginning of production through November of 2014. However, if you're going the reverse direction, part number 22978677 should be good from November of 2014 through 2017. Of course, in 2017, they changed this module right here, or this connector right here, for the 2018 and 2019 cars. So that harness is completely different. I believe you can still splice it together if you need to. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get up under here so that we can get the wiring attached to the explosive restraints that go off if the car is in a wreck. And we'll start by just unscrewing this screw here. Okay, so now I've taken that flap up and I've undone this bolt right here, which is a T47, and we're just going to, oops, gotta get that filter back on there. We're just going to pull this up, which will let us pull this out, and we can take our explosive seatbelt device out of there so that we can trace this wire better. Okay, so this is important. We unvelcroed this piece and pulled it out. We undid our cinch rope for the seat here. And once we get under here, we can see that that wire goes all the way down through there. And that's this part of the wiring harness right here. So we're just going to go through there, and we're going to use this tool right here to pull those little plastic push pins out. Alright, for the next part here, you just unhook this connector, and then you thread these down through that hole in the metal there. And then the next part is going to be just disconnecting this switch here, but I'm going to need two hands, so you won't be able to see that. Alright, for the next part, in order to get that connector out of there, I had to move this plastic trim piece up and get it disconnected off of that metal piece there so that I had enough room to disconnect that. But now you can see this is nice and free, and I've got room to do anything I want. The next thing we'll be doing is disconnecting these 3 connectors down here and pulling that push pin out of there. Okay, so I learned something, and the thing I learned is that you can't get this through this hole unless you raise the seat all the way up. So I've had to reinstall all these connectors. I'm going to put the seat back in the car and I'm going to raise it all the way up, and I think it'll give me enough room to get through here and get this wiring harness out of here. But you can see the clearance is just non-existent there. So I think we can get a lot more room by raising the seat up. Okay, so yeah, if you are super smart, you probably could have figured out how to use the connectors to raise the seat on its own, just using like a 12-volt battery. But you can see now we've got wide open space in here, and we can get our wiring harness in and out very easily. But yeah, so that's the first tip I've learned. Make sure and raise the seat all the way up before you do this. Okay, so here's our seatbelt part. You can see right here, and it is, for the earlier car, it is part number 19260693, and luckily we've got the torque specs just right here. The big bolt that holds this on right here, holds the seatbelt on, that is 27 to 38 Newton meters. Okay, so don't forget, you want to raise the seat up as much as you can before you go in here to do this. I've undone this Velcro strap, which is normally tied together with this one down here. And you can see, obviously, it's very easy to get to this bolt right here. You have to stretch just a little bit to get to the electrical connector, but it's right in there. So I'm just going to use one of these tools right here to pry that up. And then this new one should go right in. Unfortunately, I probably can't video that very well, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Okay, and I'm going to use a T45 Torx bit on that. It doesn't fit exactly perfectly, but pretty darn close. Okay, so the one that I took off here, it wants to be routed this way. So it comes out of there, around here, up under here, and over to the connector right in there that I was able to plug in. You can see this already has thread locker on this bolt. It comes that way. So we'll just put it right in there and torque it down. Okay, don't forget there's a little tab on here. Let's see. Sorry for my dexterity. This tab right here goes into a little hole right there, so this cannot move. It's not, that way you're not putting stress on this right here, so it just fits right in there nice like it's supposed to. Alright, so pro tip, the actual instructions that came with the part, you can tell that's not a Corvette seat, at least not a C7 seat, so those were wrong. So we go to the C7 manual and we can see bolt number 1 here, and it's to be tightened down to 45 Newton meters or 33 pound-feet of torque. So we've got the torque wrench set to 33, and we'll just tighten it down like so. Okay, so basically all of our wiring harness is out of here now. Connectors in the back, connectors in the front. It's basically just plug and play with all those connectors. I took a lot of pictures because you've got to remember where each piece goes, and now we're going to get to putting it back in. Okay, so first things first, we're going to take our wiring harness right side up, and we're going to feed it under here. The one thing we know more than anything is that this part goes right here. So we'll thread a little bit more of that wiring harness through. And we'll go from there. Okay, so this anchor goes right here. This one here goes right there. Then these 3 hook into here. It's really easy to tell what order they go in. And then you're going to shove this long one that has the the seatbelt restraint firing device on the end of it. That is going to go through this hole here. This is going to go through that hole. And this is going to go through that hole. And then you're going to flip the seat over. And it'll be really easy to see where those go on the other side. The next anchor point that we're going to have is going to be this pin here, right into there. The yellow and blue wire goes into the inboard motor. The blue and green wire goes into the outboard motor. I don't know, on this particular car there's an orange sticker and a white sticker. These two go right in here, obviously. This one up here goes like this. Sorry, it's hard to do with the camera, but this one up here goes up in there, and then this little push pin goes right down there. And then the one that's caused all this problem in the first place is going to go right here, and then right under there, and hook up to this module here. Then you're going to bring this little wire from down here all the way up over around, push that pin in there, and then connect it right up here. This is the inboard side of the passenger seat. Okay, so I took off the piece that holds that in on this rear connector just so I could get it to go through here without any problems. Okay, this spot here is the only place that this connector can go to, which means that this sort of clamp piece is going to clamp onto the edge of that metal piece there, which means this one is going to clamp on right here as well, and then this will go right in this hole here. You can see that right in there. And the big one, a little smaller connector, but the bigger piece right there will go into this big hole right here. And we're getting close to being done. So then when you're putting this back together, this right here will go into this hole right here. And the big one right here will go into this hole right here. And then you'll just connect this one to this one, this one to this one will go to there, and this one will go right there. So now the last thing we've got to do is fit our seat controls back up through here. So you're going to put them through this metal bracket here, then up through here, and away we go. We've threaded this wire here through here, and this piece will go right down into that hole right there. And then the second attachment is right up under here. And then of course it will attach to the mechanism right up here. And then we want the bolt that goes in the pretensioner there. If we look that up, that is 33 foot-pounds. Alright, so we'll set our torque wrench to 33 inch-pounds. And seat's going to want to move, so you'll have to brace it. Then, a couple things. One, you're going to need to finagle this right here so that we get that piece of metal up inside there. And then you're going to want to put this piece of plastic right in here so that when you press it down, it's going to latch on there. Like that. And This needs to go, that metal hook needs to go inside that plastic hole there. And then you'll remember to put your screw right in here at the back. Alright, so you can see here bolt number, or nut number 1, that's the 4 nuts that hold the seat in place. They are tightened to 37 pound-feet for the front and 37 pound-feet for the back. Okay, so last but not least, we've got this little bolt that holds our seatbelt in on the outside of the seat. And it is number 2, you can see. It is number 2, that is 53 inch-pounds. So we'll get that installed as well. Okay, now the moment of truth to see if that airbag light is still on. And it's fixed! Woohoo! The 30-minute job that took 3 months is over.
Thanks for watching, guys.